Hello, and welcome to Alive or Just Blethering, a podcast where two 30-somethings discuss the music we found and loved growing up. My name is Keith McLeod, and with me is my fellow host, Chris Lavender. Today on Alive or Just Blethering, I'll be talking about Death Pop Romance by Raunchy.
Hello Keith, and how are you today?
Excuse me, Lav, I'm just having a little drink of my chocolate milk. I've got a little chalky milk here. I'm just having a little squiz of my Yazoo.
Yazoo, how old are you? 15?
36, crap. Hey man, how are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. It's been a busy old week in the Lavender household.
Hasn't it just? You've had some exams and shit going on, haven't you?
I have, and I don't find the results out till next week. So, yeah, doing an exam at age 30 where you don't get an instant result, that's weird. That's really
but
weird.
You're a massive nerd, so let's face it, you've probably smashed them.
I wish I shared your optimism.
Well, thanks for coming back. If you are a returning listener, if you're new to the podcast, welcome. We are going to discuss Death Pop Romance by Danish band Raunchy. It's been a very decisive week for Lav and I. This is probably our most...
The DMs have been on fire between me and you about this one, and
It's been turbulent. Let's see.
I mean, and again, I want to preface this to you, Keith, and our listeners.
Oh yeah, here we go.
I like this album.
Oh, do you?
Okay, there we go. I like this album. I've concerns. I've other concerns that we will get to, but I like it overall.
Well, if you, the listener, also like this album, feel free to join in the conversation at AOGD Podcast, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Lav is getting stuck into the YouTube again, so watch that space for some more stuffs and contents, or maybe not. I'm getting a dodgy look at the face.
Trying. My computer basically wants to take off and go to space when I start rendering an hour-long podcast into a video.
You're doing great. Great. If you'd like to help us along, by all means, give us a little review on whatever, 5-star review preferably, please, on whatever platform you're listening on. Recommend us to a friend, give us a share, let us know that you're there.
Like and subscribe.
Like and subscribe. Now that I've sold my soul. Lav, you like this album?
Yes, I do. And I remember listening to it all the way back in 2006. I think this was one that was... through the Trivium forum, I believe, that was discussed on previous albums. There was always the back and forth of new records that we'd found through our online passages, and this was one that I picked up and instantly liked. It sounded like a lot of the bands that I was listening to at the time. Fit right in. How about you? How did you discover Raunchy?
Down to the metal band I was in, again, a very influential time in my life with these guys, musically and in general. And yeah, this was just sort of, they had a much more diverse and had way more exposure to sort of the European metal scene that we've sort of touched on before. You know, we've mentioned In Flames, we've touched on it with Trivium, etc. So, you know, these guys showed me a lot more European sort of nuclear blast metal bands and stuff like that. And yeah, just straight out of there, they were like, you know, check out Raunchy. If you like Still Remains, check out Raunchy. And hells to the yeah, I liked this, and I more than liked it. This was my vibe. This was my bag for a very long time.
I don't remember it being a bag for a long time. I remember it being a standout album in a very short space of time, perhaps in between Chimera and Trivium and Still Remains. This sort of like bubbled in there. I never followed up into any other albums at the time. This was just a standalone. Listened to this album. I never went out of my way to find further releases. Again, just for our listeners at home, you've got to put yourself back into 2006. There was no Spotify. There was no Apple Musics, Amazon Musics. you literally, well, in my experience, you discovered music through forums. In Keith's experience, you discovered it through your friends. And unless someone somewhere had told you this album has come out, then you'd have to manually, physically get off your ass and go and find it in the digital hellscape that was 2008.
Yeah, very very similar to where we were last week with Norma Jean. These guys were not. There wasn't a lot of raunchy music videos. There's some, but there wasn't. Raunchy were not getting blasted all over your Kerangs and your Scuzzes. They weren't doing massive tours, etc. Again, we referenced it with Norma Jean. Norma Jean, we don't think we're a full-time band. Raunchy are not a full-time band. They've not released anything since 2014, which I genuinely, 2015, 2016, 2017, I was checking these guys out. I was looking online. I was checking Spotify, the Wikipedia, something to say that something was coming. We'll get onto that to see if there is anything coming, but yeah, not a massive band by any stretch. Not a particularly well-known band by any stretch. I've never seen them tour the UK. The friends that I referred to that sort of got me into this band had to go to Europe to see them. I think there was like a open air something in somewhere, and I definitely remember them they were going for Raunchy, if I remember correctly.
Wow.
But yeah, just a band I very much got into and a band I very much stayed with, and if it wasn't for the fact they just haven't released music since 2014, I suspect a band I would still be listening to.
That's impressive. I feel like their music has been replaced in the sort of grand scheme of things by sort of Gent, your Peripheries, Vela Myers. That feels like a natural sort of evolution, especially when I was listening to you advised that I listened to the 2010 album Discotheque Electric.
2008 Wasteland Discotheque.
Oh, the one that came after that then.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, 2010 A Discord Electric.
A Discord Electric, sorry. When I listened to the first track of that, it gave me some early Periphery 2 vibes. Not saying that it was as similar or anything, I just had the same sort of feeling that if this music put a 7-string on it and slapped a couple of drop beats on it, I think we'd basically have the makings of what is now commonly known as Djent, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I could probably see these guys being fairly capable and comfortable within that sound. I don't think they ever did that, though, to say that they were releasing music up to 2014. I think every Raunchy album is a Raunchy album. There's nothing particularly influenced by. Just before we started recording, I recommended a track off of an album you said you'd only listen to 3 songs on, and I was just like, well, go listen to this because the riff's amazing, and you were like, that's nu metal. I'm not going to say that's not nu metal. You saying it, I'm like, yeah, it probably could be a nu metal riff, but I would say it's way heavier and way more. There's more of a soundscape there than what you maybe get out of your typical nu metal track. So that's one of the things I do love about this band. I think every album is distinctly theirs, and they do. While there are obviously similarities, I think they do progress, and they'll try things, or there's on A Discord Electric, there's an absolute pop song on it, but I love it.
Okay.
It's called The Big Truth, and it's just all synths and keys and stuff like that, and it's great, but. Yeah, I think they progressed within their own remit, mm-hmm. and got heavier and what have you, and that's something I've sort of always loved about this band.
I like that you mentioned the synths. I think that is one of their standout sort of elements of even in Death Pop Romance. It's got that's a very similar sort of style synth to that of Still Remains. Very fast paced. And carries a melody with it, so it carries the song a bit, and it doesn't just fade into the distance as like just strings or anything. It's actually playing a tune, which I really liked in Death Pop Romance because it carries the songs well. I really like in Death Pop Romance I think it's a really well recorded album overall.
No, I totally agree. I think for the time, actually, if we go back to Still Remains, because there's going to be quite a lot of Still Remains references, I would maybe say Of Love and Lunacy has a better production. Going back to Death Pop Romance in 2022 does sound like it's aged a little bit, especially when you do go on to Wasteland Discotheque or A Discord Electric. Like, they sound a lot more on the same line of production. On the same level of production, they sound a little bit more consistent and they sound a little bit more modern, but both albums are 2008, 2010. Death Pop Romance, not to its discredit, I don't think it sounds bad, but I think they definitely upped their production game a little bit later on.
Mm-hmm. Just looking at the label mates that they were sharing at the time is probably another way that I may well have found them, as they were on the same label as Caliban. Yep. They were on the same label as Heaven Shall Burn, and they share a label with a band that I would love to bring to the pod one day in the future, much to your dismay, which will be the Faceless.
No idea who they are.
The Faceless were one of those bands that I got into a lot, and another band that, similar to yourself, I was regularly checking for when the next release was going to come. There always was some bit of news about them because they were constantly changing members and things. But yeah, and then there was one that you mentioned earlier, that Deadlock. They were label mates as well.
They were label mates with Deadlock?
Yeah.
On Lifeforce?
Yeah, Lifeforce. They released Wolves by Deadlock.
Sick.
I'm just having a little scoot through the pages here. Oh, War from a Harlot's Mouth. There's a band I've not heard from in a long time. Goodness me.
Excuse you, War from a Harlot's Mouth? What the fuck?
Oh, we'll talk about it soon, don't you worry. There's one I need to add to the spreadsheet. I completely forgot that band existed. Again, another band that maybe was a flash in the pan from the MySpace days, and they fucking ripped, if I remember rightly, but we'll see what I feel about that nowadays. So you obviously discovered these through your bandmates at the time, who were more into the European metal sound. Were there any, we've touched on a few, were there any sort of other European bands that you would have listened to, that you would compare them to favourably?
Yeah, so funnily enough, I as we sometimes tend to do, I was looking at Spotify and what else, what fans also listen to. So you mentioned Deadlock. Deadlock were a band that take me right back. I could even maybe do an episode on them. I won't, because I actually forgot they existed. But I did, round about this time, I was like right into my European metal, along with Caliban. I'm surprised I didn't remember them during the Caliban episode, since they're also a German band. But yeah, Deadlock, Scar Symmetry. The Nemec? Are you familiar with a band called Nemec?
None of these bands make any sense.
You don't know Scar Symmetry?
It's just not that just wasn't my scene. And I think this is where I sort of maybe fell off from Raunchy, possibly, because by 2006, and we've covered Parkway Drive, I've covered Norma Jean, my tastes were diverging into a different direction at this stage.
Well, a very good point that you've sort of brought that up. Thanks for saying. So we were talking last week about Norma Jean, Oh God, the Aftermath?
Yes.
Oh God, the Aftermath. And I was less than keen on it. That's because in 2006, I was listening to Death Pop Romance and, melodic metalcore with synthwave and keys and stuff like that going through. I was listening to this stuff. So I would say there's quite a contrast between Oh God, the Aftermath and Death Pop Romance. Do you know what I mean?
Did you ever listen to a band called As Blood Runs Black?
Don't think so. Because
that was sort of the genesis of, like, I would call it probably MySpace deathcore. Along with your Suicide Silencers and there's just so many, like the Elijah.
The Elijah I am familiar with.
Not the Elijah you're thinking of.
Oh, not the post-hardcore Elijah.
No, a band called, I think they were just called Elijah. They weren't called the Elijah, it was just Elijah. Okay. And then there was a band called See You Next Tuesday. Very much a fast grind death noisecore sort of type thing.
The only really band I think I got into that, or the only band that's coming to mind, is I Wrestled a Bear once.
Oh yes.
I was sort of into them for a while. I ironically only, and this is what leads me on to, we've mentioned them before, Spirit Box. I only really listened to one of the Courtney LaPlante albums. I don't know where I found it. I don't know how I got onto it. I just thought it was awesome. Didn't think about anything at the time. And then, K-Mac from YouTube recommends Spirit Box, and then I check them out, and it's bloody Courtney LaPlante, and I'm like, I remember her from I Wrestled a Bear once, and boom, Spirit Box fan. But
yeah,
we talk too much about that band.
We do. So there we go. So there's all the good things I can say about Raunchy. They were very, very capable in their instrument. They were very good. I think it's a very well written album. One I would listen to again. Absolutely.
I feel, and I obviously kind of know what's coming from the previous week's long conversation about this, but there's a massive but coming. Is that fair to say?
There's a butt the size of the sun coming, but In Flames did it better. They're just In Flames, but they're In Flames with extra synth. I can go back to In Flames. I will go back to In Flames. I will go back to Reroute to Remain. I'll go back to Clayman. I'll go back to Jester Race, because it's got all the elements that Death Pop Romance has got, but it was better. And you asked me at one point, like, you were shitting on this opinion, which fair enough, it's just my opinion. And like, you asked,
it's like, we're the only thing we have on this podcast is opinion, but fuck your opinion. Yeah, okay.
And I'm not saying fuck your opinion. You were saying fuck my opinion, so fuck you.
Yeah.
So,
Please continue.
So anyway, and you asked for examples, and I just laid out fucking 3 examples of different European metal bands who are, in my opinion, fuck you with your opinions, but in my opinion, are more individual, more memorable, and importantly, more influential than Raunchy.
I don't know how to answer that, because I felt through that conversation it was Raunchy's fault they weren't more famous.
No.
You're saying these guys are more influential because In Flames are more influential. From what I can remember, you said In Flames, At the Gates, and Children of Bodom. Right? Okay. Now, I don't know much about At the Gates. Children of Bodom and In Flames are 2 of the biggest European metal bands to have ever existed, especially in our lifetime. So, of course they're great bands, but take out In Flames a little bit, because there's 100% similarities. Raunchy and Bodom are 2 completely different bands.
The example for that was just to show, because I like that Bodom have got a lot of synth. You put Follow the Reaper on, and it's
Not gonna say it's not. But
so it was the synth. It was the synth element in there. Very melodic synth, carries a lot of melody. Same things that I was saying about Death Pop Romance just however many minutes ago. And In Flames, because of the production, it sounds like an In Flames album. I can't escape it. It sounds like Reroute to Remain. It's the tone of the guitars, the growls, the screams, very, very similar to Anders. And I feel, and I wasn't trying to say it's their fault for not being famous. Obviously, you're not famous because people didn't pick up on it. But my point was that since there was so little to differentiate themselves between that, in my opinion, that a person listening to it, like me, I'm speaking from my experience, didn't stick with them because, well, why would I? I can get, if I want In Flames, I've got In Flames. If I want Bodom, I've got Bodom. If I want Out the Gates, I've got Out the Gates. If I want, I don't feel like there was anything special or extraordinary in listening to Raunchy that would draw me back to them, or that would keep me listening to them at that time.
And it cuts me deep. Cuts me deep that you feel like that. And that, for the listeners, there's a trigger word in there. that started this whole conversation. I said to Lav, I find this band extraordinary. And he went on an absolute rage that they were not extraordinary, that they were the poor man's In Flames.
I was responding. I just want to give you some context because I didn't say what I was doing while we were.
I assumed you were under some pressure. I assumed you were maybe a little bit stressed because I felt you came at.
I was shopping in Aldi. I was doing the most stressful task of my week.
Totally, man. Who can survive that checkout? Like, honestly, the way that Aldi absolutely just.
And I was able to keep that up. I was able to keep replying and throw in some Spotify links, and I was on fire. And yeah, it was when you'd said extraordinary before I got in the car, and I'm like in the car all the way to, I think, the 10-minute drive to Aldi, just fuming at that at that word. And I'm like speaking to myself in the car, like, he thinks they're extraordinary. Christ. And I'm like, and that's when I got the definition of extraordinary out for you and everything.
Yeah, you went full, like, fucking rage lord on me. Okay, so if I may retort.
Yes, you may. Please do.
I do not find the vocals similar to Anders in the slightest. There are similarities, and what I said to you at the time was, Raunchy are from Denmark. They're a Danish band, Denmark and Sweden, very close together. They were originally formed in 1992. Now, the album we're talking about in particular is their third album from 2006. These guys came up at the same time, so there are going to be similarities, and I don't think it's to either band's detriment, but I think Raunchy are very much within their own sound. And, right, they've still released 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They've still released 6 albums as soon as 2014. I'd argue that by 2014, not that I even necessarily need to argue, but In Flames got soft, right? We can all say that. In Flames, very much dropped necessarily the metal sound, can we say, and did a bit more sort of rockier things. Still would drop a heavy riff or whatever now and again, but you listen to early Still Remains, you listen to late Still Remains, quite different, and that's fine. That's not a criticism. I actually like some of the later stuff. Definitely prefer some of the more middle stuff, like around. I've forgotten the album now, but that's fine. I don't have a problem with these bands sounding similar, but to say you don't have to listen to Raunchy because you can get it from Still Remains or you can get it from At the Gates, I think is an absolute discredit to Raunchy. I think they are, within their own right, an extraordinary band.
Oh. There he is again. There he goes again. Well, you're entitled to your opinion, and we're just going.
And you're entitled to yours, sir. While I take a little sip of my chalky milk.
And we're just going to have to agree to disagree on this.
Nah, you're just wrong. I'm sorry. I feel very strongly about it.
Clearly, I've touched a nerve on your use of the word.
You're entitled to your opinion. And so I was going to come back to the Bodum thing. Right, people, more than one band can have keyboards, Laugh. It's totally fine.
They can, but what that band does to ensure that they stand out, it's important for a band to stand out in a crowd. If you don't stand out, you're just part of the noise.
Yeah, sure.
It's also important. It's also very important for bands to evolve naturally, I feel. If a band goes too far in one of its albums, they can alienate their fan base and lose and not get any new fans in. At the same token, if they just keep making the same album over and over again, they don't make any new fans. They just kind of stick with their existing ones. So there's a very fine balance that bands have to make.
So where do you think Raunchy sit within that? Do you think they've just stuck to the same thing, or?
I think in the limited listening that I had of their other albums, I think they clearly tried to go in a more accessible direction. In the following 2 albums, especially A Discord Electric, I feel that album is it's too poppy for my liking. I'm so
confused as to why you dislike that album so much.
It's too happy.
There is a song on that album, track 8, Big Truth. It's the one I sent to you, you know, with the kid dancing gif. And that's the pop song. That's the one I was referring to. That is a pop song. Hands down, that's a pop song. But, you know, Night Party, Street Emperor, well, Night Party's a little bit more sort of safe, I would argue. But Blueprints of the Lost Sounds, the one I was trying to get you into before we listened, you know, you said it sounded like Spine Shank. I nearly quit the podcast. Like,
it just sounds like it sounds like really honest. Like put that 2010 out. Was it 2010? Discord Electric came out.
Yeah.
Put that album 10 years before, and it would have been number one. It would have been fighting with your System of a Downs and your Deftones and your Spine Shanks. It would have been absolutely killing it 10 years earlier.
Oh my word, I disagree heavily.
That's a positive.
No, I disagree because this is just an argument now.
I'm trying to say something nice about it, and you're like just making
I don't think that's a compliment. Oh, they're as good as System of a Down. Like, fucking kill me. Like, System of a Down are shit, and no, we all need to admit that. Like, System of a Down are garbage. Like, can we all just finally admit that?
Just waiting for everyone to admit things. Okay,
great.
Now that everyone's moved on from that.
Now that everyone agrees with me that they're actually garbage. Like I never liked System of a Down.
Well, okay. I'm not saying System. I'm just saying System of a Down purely because there's a 2000 album. Toxicity was massive. If you'd put this side by side with it, it would have easily competed with it.
To me, they are night and day. Irrespective of my thoughts about System of a Down, you're right. Toxicity was massive. It, clearly I'm wrong. You know, Toxicity was incredibly popular, sure, but Raunchy's 2010 and Discord Electric and System of a Down's Toxicity are black and white. They are two completely different albums.
They are, but Discord Electric would not been out of place on a new metal playlist. That's what I'm trying to get at. It would have fit in with that, but it came out in 2010, and when it came out in 2010, I was not listening to music like this at all. And listening to it today, I'm like, this is garbage. This is pop rock metal cock jockey stuff that I'm just not into.
Look at me. Look at where I am right now. Look. Can you help the listeners visualize where I am right now? What am I doing with myself? What's my body language? You
look dead inside, Keith.
I am dead inside. I have melted into my chair.
I want to bring up.
Mm-hmm.
I want to bring up the MGK reference that I made.
Don't, because I'm gonna leave.
It wasn't, and again, I'm not insulting them. I'm trying to make a comparison.
Yeah, about Machine Gun Kelly.
Okay. The most hated man in rock at the moment, Machine Gun Kelly. I don't
care about him.
It's not the point. Point is that he's come out of rap albums and he's released a pop punk album. He's released a pop punk album to 15 and 16-year-olds who weren't there when pop punk was a thing 20 years ago. So they're hearing this style of music for the first time and thinking it's brand new. And then people come out and say, oh, well, it's Travis Barker who's on drums. He played in this band. And it's helping people discover the older music. So there's a gap of over at least 20 years between these styles. Raunchy have taken a style that was I think the album I compare it favourably to is Reroute to Remain, which was 2002. So there's an album that was only 4 years earlier. And that's where I feel like there's just this lack of differentiation. There's something that they're borrowing over from it that's making me go, yeah, I can listen to this elsewhere. I've got it. I've heard it all before.
Right. One, Machine Gun Kelly is a joke. He is a shock jock that is out there to make money and sell records. We know that because he's just an absolute clickbait arsehole.
Yeah, he is, and
Two,
all to him, because people are buying his fucking records, so it's working.
people are idiots, so it doesn't mean anything. So two, Raunchy are a pretty low. You know, I'd be surprised if anyone actually listens to this episode, because who the hell actually knows who Raunchy are? You know, one album from 2006. I can't imagine there's going to be a massive fan base out there for this. So, you know, this could be the new Wooden Spoon. But they have just been a consistently great band, in my opinion, producing consistently great music to their own, I think, unique sound. You asked me, again, through our week-long conversation, you know, what is different about them? You've already said yourself, their use of synths and keyboards. It's way more prominent in their music than the lead comparison here, which seems to be In Flames. I would say the drumming is, I mean, it doesn't need to be this breakdown to this sort of simple, but the drumming way more different. You know, disco beats, using like coming off the hi-hats a lot more, and just a lot more variety and range within there. Personally, again, this is my differentiation.
You just named other things I don't like.
But you might not like them, but it differentiates them from these other bands. If you're saying they're just the same, they've just done what In Flames did, but not as good, I would say 100% they'll be influenced by In Flames, but they've done their own thing and they've done it incredibly well. Not necessarily saying they're better than In Flames. In Flames are an incredibly good band, just like Bodom, etc. But it hurts me. It genuinely pains me. We need to get off this conversation because we're just spiraling out of control here. But it pains me that you're just calling them...
So he's going to carry the conversation on anyway.
I'm going to close it. This is me coming to a close. It pains me that you just sort of refer to them as like a poor man's In Flames.
Did not say
In Flames. What was it you said?
Tribute act.
I think somehow that's worse. So let's get back onto Death Pop Romance. Out of you, because again, you liked Death Pop Romance. Apparently,
I do like the album.
Did I really call System of a Down shit? Yeah, I did, because they are.
Yeah, you did. All 5 of our subscribers just unsubscribed.
Oh, I'd also like to pick up on actually something I said, because I've recently edited the Protest the Hero episode, and maybe if anyone thought I was a little bit harsh on Americans, looks at my watch and it's time for another school shooting. So, you know, I don't think I'm displaced in saying that. So let's continue, shall we?
Bringing that up. Yep.
Death Pop Romance. What songs out of the album did you sort of stood out for you? What made you look at your phone and think, shit, that's a riff?
Certainly Remembrance. That was the one I think that I heard first.
Yep, track 5.
That one really, really stands out as... there's a memory. That must have been the song that I heard first, whether it was the song they had on their MySpace or the one that someone shared in the forum all those years ago. I think it's an absolute jam. It's just got all the right ingredients, and I feel like a lot of the album sort of has this really that flow to it. This Legend is Forever. The synth line in it, that fucking love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Maybe Phantoms. I think that's probably another kind of one that really stood out as well. I can't really think why, but it's an album that I really appreciated, and it, from a nostalgia point of view, it brought back a lot of memories of that early 2006. Where I was living at the time, and you know the situation that I was in then.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, Chimera was on repeat at that point. I was listening to Nothing Remains pretty much every day. I was listening to a lot of Trivium from 2005 still at this point. This was a few months before the fallout of that, so it was good. It was a good time. It was a nice time, but it was just before things really changed in my tastes, as the next few months will attest.
Yeah, that cool, and all great songs really. I mean, obviously I'm biased incredibly. I love the whole album, but yeah, I think for me, everything you've just said, but I'll back it up with Phantoms. Track 3, I think is incredible. That the verse just kicks in through that. Live the Myth, track 6, also of all the songs on this album are just batshit crazy. As they sort of go on, as they progress, like I'm saying in Discord Electric, Big Truth, it's a pop song, they sort of differentiate a little bit more. You know, they have a little bit more style, they sort of bring in a little bit more different aspects of music and stuff like that. But one song that forever stood out to me every time I listened to this album was track 9, The Velvet Remains. It's one that has like the sort of massive breakdown at the end that leads in.
I think I know the one you mean. I can't recall it note for note.
So it has the build up. I'm actually listening to it now as we're talking through it. Just there's sort of the riff is coming in, and then it just kicks in. It just goes to a straight beat, and it's and it just does this run that then changes into a beatdown that then changes into like the verse on the outro. That always just got me. I don't know why. I thought it was just like awesome that the song changed into this bit and just went fucking balls out.
Yeah, I think it's an album that really is well made as far as a recording goes. I think it is well recorded. My problem with Raunchy, as I've sort of clearly said, is sort of the drums have this poppiness about them, more so in later albums, that maybe isn't so clear in this album, and that's probably why I like this one the most. I feel of the Raunchy albums I did listen to, this one felt the heaviest. It felt the one with the most purpose and drive in it, whereas others felt a little bit more airy-fairy in my limited experience.
Good lord. Okay, yeah, cool beans. Cool.
So, as a Raunchy fan, what is your favourite Raunchy album?
I know what isn't my favourite album, and it's Wasteland Discotheque. I think Wasteland Discotheque doesn't feel as consistent. It doesn't feel... I listened to it probably for the first time in a long time this week, and I enjoy it. Again, it's not one of those moments where if everything else is a 10, this is a 9. It's lower in my estimations there. But I think because they changed vocalists between A Discord Electric and Vices, Virtues, Visions, their 2014, the last album they did, I think the new vocalist, an Englishman actually, by the name, I think he's English or he might be Canadian, by the name of Mike Semensky. Now he's in a band called Intervals. You familiar with Intervals?
It sounds like a very generic band name. When I saw In Flames, they were supported by a band called Defects. Again, capable band, very charismatic on stage. I could see them becoming, quite up and coming. But the band name's shite. Like,
oh, my mistake. He was part of Intervals. I don't know if he's gone back.
It just sounds like a very generic word band name.
I feel I knew them. They're still going. Yeah, Mike was and is now not. It's now just a guy called Aaron Marshall. Are these guys just a studio album? The Shape of Colour 2015, The Way Forward 2017, Circadian 2020.
Not Intervals. I recognise a name of a band with an IN, but it isn't Intervals, I don't think. Anyway,
so yeah, there's definitely a change once Mike comes into it, and I think I really like Discord Electric, but something about Vices, Virtues and Visions is a bit heavier, a bit more, I don't want to say adult, but like a bit more just in your face sort of oof. Maybe they came back to sort of riffs a little bit better. That's not to discredit the vocalist that is on Death Pop all the way up to Discord Electric, a gentleman by the name of Casper Thompson. I said these guys, everyone was named Casper. There's not. There's two Jaspers. So, close enough.
Casper, Jasper. Okay.
I mean, I think I'll always come back to Death Pop Romance because it was just one of those albums that just blew me away. Like, as with a lot of music around about this time, I just hadn't heard anything like it before. I just thought, like Protest the Hero, I was just like, holy shit, this is just something very unique, very different, very extraordinary. But that's not to say it doesn't. There's songs. There's maybe individual songs on the likes of Discord Electric and Vices, Virtues, and Visions that I perhaps like more.
Okay.
Standalone songs. They kind of maybe get a little bit more proggy as they go on.
Yeah.
Songs get a little bit longer. They get a bit sort of into it with sort of themes and sort of melodies going through the songs and stuff like that.
So I'll come on to it with our segment in a few moments. But after listening to Vices, Virtues, and whatever the other word
Visions.
is,
Vices, Virtues, Visions.
It immediately made me want to listen to Between the Bird and Me. Especially later Between the Bird and Me, because later Between the Bird and Me became a lot more focus, a little bit more focus, I think, on the synths and the piano work. So it led me into that quite nicely, and that's that we'll bring that up afterwards, I suppose, because we'll be talking about that in our segment.
Indeed. So I was sort of saying they haven't released anything since 2014, since Mike came on board. I've obviously stopped looking. I've stopped checking because there was never any news. I know the guys, some of them went on to do some side projects. There seems to be quite a few sort of, I think they've gone into more sort of dancier moments or sort of dancier sort of synth pop bands to do that. But as of the Wikipedia, 17th of June 2021, so almost a year ago, they put up onto their Facebook that they'd finished recording drums for their next album. And then the next day they put up another video saying, work in progress, new music is coming. So 2021, obviously there was a bit of a thing around about 2021. Don't know if you heard of it, COVID-19. Presumably they've been delayed in that respect. But yeah, I'm kind of hopeful now that we might actually get some new Raunchy in the next at least, I don't know, 6 months, a year.
And you know what? After today's conversation and the week we've had listening to it, I'll give it a listen. I'll give it at least one listen. It gets one chance.
Very
one
generous
chance.
Very generous of you, love.
That's all it's getting. That's the be all and end all of my generosity. They're not a terrible band by any stretch. I think they're a very talented band, and they clearly have some very capable members in the group to make catchy, poppy, and all the types of metal that I hate.
I think that's it. Like that's clearly where we differentiate. I love that stuff. The disco beats, the synth pop stuff, in and amongst. These guys will go from a little sort of synth key section into like a blast beat into just like a really chunky, great riff. And I like that diversity. I like the range in that music. Don't get me wrong, maybe another band might do it and I might hate it. I might think they're terrible at it. But whatever Raunchy do, I think they do incredibly well. And that's what I've always appreciated about them. Even when they changed vocalists and brought in Mike, they still had the original clean singer, so it still sounded like Raunchy. Because we've said before, if you change a vocalist, it can very much change the dynamic of the band. I think these guys changed vocalists and were better for it in a different way.
No, I enjoyed it. It was more refreshing than the other two albums in between that, between Death Pop Romance and Vices, Virtues, and Visions. Sure.
Well, I'm hopefully looking forward to you listening to new Raunchy if we ever get it. I've never checked out any of the side projects. I'll be honest, I didn't know they existed, so I might go check a few things out. But apart from that, yeah, I really loved it. Oh wait, hang on, one more thing before I think we get to our conclusion. There was a bit of a theme on Death Pop Romance that we talked about, and about
because that was a bit weird. That I felt it was.
yeah, I remember talking about this at the time with my friends, and we just didn't know if it was like a tip of the hat, because this album came out in 2005. This album came out in 2006. The band we're referring to released their album in 2005. So, you know, you don't know when things were recorded, but there's the term "still remains" is referred to on 2 songs, and another song has the line "of love and lunacy."
Strange.
So, yeah,
I do wonder what the link is, and I'm wondering, are we just, you know, is it that phenomena where you're just putting these together and it was just complete coincidence, or was it because it was recorded at a time when they just heard this? Because I think, was this recorded in 2005, and then it came out in 2006.
No, yeah, it did, yeah.
So was this just on their mind? Did they just have the words "still remains" and the words "of love and lunacy" in their head? There's certainly albums I've listened to where clearly the singer in that moment has had a set of vocabulary that
I think we've all heard it before, where you sort of see bands when they're recording and they lock themselves away, don't they? They don't listen to other music or new music because they don't want to be sort of influenced at the time when they're writing, when they're creating. But the song "The Velvet Remains" has the line at the end of one of the verses: "Tonight is a night where nothing remains the same. All is still here. The velvet still remains." So when you hear like the line in context, it's not referring to "Still Remains" the band. It's "The Velvet Still Remains." But it does stand out.
So the one that sort of thing stands out for me is when we talked about Ruben's "Race Cars, Race Car Backwards," the first song on that album. They talk about "Hell is for Heroes."
Yeah,
and it is directly referencing "Hell is for Heroes" and the fact that they have a new album out and it's a top 40 smash, no doubt. And it's not like a tip of the hat, I don't think. I think it's just a set of vocabulary that they just so happen to have on their mind at the time.
Yeah. In the song "Farewell to Devotion," well, check this out. "As I sense the infinite syntax of your love, only one question still remains. Will you say my name? We burn down heavens, we are all the same." Still remains, will you say my name?
Heaven shall burn down heavens. I'm after a bit of a stretch, don't know.
Yeah, I never picked up that before. And then finally, on the first song, "Abandon Your Hope," is "Of revenge and conspiracy, of love and lunacy, the dawn of the dead has arrived over Hollywood."
So the movie Dawn of the Dead.
Who knows? I'm not searching for. Yeah, I'm not meaning to search for hidden meanings there. I'm just purely pulling out the fact that you can identify the phrase "still remains" in 2 different songs, and then the phrase "of love and lunacy" in a third song. And we talked about this at the time. Sorry, the second song, "Abandon Your Hope." We talked about this at the time with my sort of friends. You know, is it a tip of the hat? Is it like a sort of, we see what you guys are doing, you know, we're doing this, there's similarities there. Who knows? But yeah, just something to mention, since we've covered "Of Love and Lunacy" by Still Remains.
We have, and it was the reason this podcast exists.
Maybe also this band as well, to be honest. You know,
because no one's fucking talking about them.
Outside that circle of friends that I'm probably no longer really particularly close with at all. We've not spoken in years, so that'll tell you something. Yeah, you know, no one outside of those guys knew this band. And, you know, I come back to the Veil of Maya story, where we were at a house party one time. I put Veil of Maya on, I got absolutely ridiculed, and a few years later you were like, "Veil of Maya are pretty good." Like, same thing. If I'd put on like Still Remains or Raunchy at one of those house parties, I'd have got laughed out of the room. But to me, it's always been really, really good music. It's been good music.
Fair enough. I'm glad you like them. And I'm glad you enjoy them, and I do hope they release something new in 2022 or 2023 to satisfy that itch you've got.
Can't imagine what it's going to sound. I mean, it will sound like Raunchy, but will they take influences from Gent? Will they take influences from, I don't know, fucking
Spirit
anything
Box
else.
or Architects or
Yeah.
all these other popular
go
metal
that way.
bands. Who knows?
There you go. That was Death Pop Romance by Raunchy. Again, if you're gonna Google the band, make sure you put in band after Raunchy.
Been making sure I've been doing that all week.
Yeah. It's in my search history, so it's fine. But thanks for listening. I'm gutted, to capital G gutted, that you sort of felt other bands did it better. But hey, buddy, you're entitled to your opinion, and that's why we're here.
Yeah, at least I didn't shit on it like you shit on everything that I pick, but hey ho.
Well, here's a tip. Don't pick System of a Down.
I will not. I will not.
Right, segment.
What are we listening to?
What are you listening to?
This week, as I've alluded to in our conversation there, after listening to the last, or the most recent Raunchy album of 2014, I decided to have a listen to the most recent release by Between the Bird and Me, and that was Colours 2. A very, very capable album that I love listening to end to end. There are some utterly amazing moments throughout that album. I think it's only, I want to say 7 or 8 tracks, but again, it's Between the Bird and Me we're talking about, so there's literally like 10, 15-minute tracks in there. But the track Fix the Error, oh my, every time that comes on, I stop what I'm doing. Actually, no, it has 12 tracks, that album. Does it? Yeah.
Sorry, what album's that on? I missed it.
Colours 2.
Oh, yeah, okay. I have actually not listened to Colours 2.
I would highly recommend to anyone who hasn't, especially if you're in the mood after listening to Raunchy, go give it a listen, because I think you'll be in the right frame of mind for it.
I mean, if you'd said, I think I have to go listen to that, because if you'd said to me, I'm going to go listen to Between the Bird and Me after Protest the Hero, I'd been like, fuck yeah, I'm with you. Great misdirect, let's go. But Raunchy into Between the Bird and Me, I really got to hear that.
That was just where I was. You'd suggested their last album, and I was like, well, let's go listening to a more recent Between the Bird and Me album, because I think since The Parallax, which was the album that came after The Great Misdirect, I feel that they went a bit weird. I think the album's Coma, Future, what was it? So The Parallax 1 and 2, and Coma, Ecliptic, and Automata 1 and 2, I think are a little bit too weird for my tastes on Between the Bird and Me side.
Yeah.
But you know what? Going from Raunchy into it made sense, and I quite enjoyed it. Another one which was kindly served to me by my release radar on Spotify.
Oh, don't you dare.
Was Wake, the song Swallow the Light.
Bastard! You bastard! That was one of mine.
By any chance, did someone share that with you?
Yeah, you shared Cracks in the Pyre by Conjurer, and so I was listening to your suggested, or your release radar, and that came on next. That's how I heard it, because you shared your playlist with me.
Did I share the playlist with you? Oh, I thought I just shared a song with you.
No, you sorry, you did, but it played out of your playlist. You've done that to me before, where if you share your like release radar, it shares your release radar with me.
Oh, I didn't know it did that. Well, my release radar is fucking tight, so you're welcome.
Well, almost, because after Swallow the Light, it went on to some weird Aphex Twin shit, and I was like, nope. And I'm out.
And I'm out. Yeah, fair enough. Yep, that Wake band, I am very excited to hear the album of that.
Yeah, that's sick, that song. 100% that. I was like, oof. You know, as I'm looking at myself in the camera, I was just like, oof.
Oof is a great example. Oof. It just kept on going. I couldn't keep breathing out any longer. I just ran out of breath.
I was like, oh, you have my attention. Jeez, where is this going?
Right, sir. That is very likely going to be one of my albums. If they can make more songs like that, if their album is an album of that, that's my album of the year. I'm calling it.
Do you know Wake? Are you familiar with the band at all?
No, I've not. I've not listened to any of them before. I've never followed them. It just appeared on my release radar, so it's a brand new song. They've had They've got about three. They've got 3 albums on Spotify right now. I'm gonna be listening to them this week. That's my listening this week. Basically, outside of this, and yeah, that was it really. I listened to a 2021 Between the Bird and Me album, and I discovered Wake.
Nice. Well, okay, so you took one of mine, because
Sorry.
I've just listened to a shit ton of Raunchy this week. I've gone through all their albums multiple times. But, so, yeah, you originally sent me Cracks in the Pyre by Conjurer. I think we both agreed a bit of a bland song compared to what we've heard previously. This one just didn't quite hit as much. And then, if anything, Swallow the Light by Wake was probably what I wanted to hear.
Fair.
You know, from what I've heard, from what we've heard of Conjurer before. But so yeah, I checked out Swallow the Light by Wake a few times. But what Cracks in the Pyre reminded me of was a song by Crippled Black Phoenix, Cry of Love. Now, I am not familiar with Crippled Black Phoenix. I've shared this song with a few friends, yourself included. You all seem to know who the band are. So I'm not too familiar with their back catalogue, but for some reason, Cry of Love is tremendous, or I find it tremendous. But I have it on my liked songs. So on Spotify, you like a song, it goes in a playlist, liked songs. There are some absolute bangers in my liked playlist, and it almost makes me sad that I don't listen to the radio as much because I've not added to it as much recently.
Yeah, you've got to put in to get something out. The more you put in, the more you get out of Spotify. And I, for reasons we won't go into, started a new account with Spotify, and I've had to build it back up again. Yeah. So I've gone a few weeks without a release radar, without my Discover Weekly. But the things that I've gone through and listened to, I've been following artists, I've been liking songs again, and it builds up a profile. And I'm funny about these things. I'm quite funny about online privacy, and I'm an advocate for online privacy and security and things.
Not off.
But when it comes to music,
yeah,
I want it. I want them. I feed the algorithm. I want them to find new. I want to find new music. I don't want to be advertised to. I don't want people to tell me that you bought this for your patio, therefore you must want this next. I don't like that. That's creepy. But when it's music recommendations, I'm like, fucking bring it on. Pile them in.
So some of the songs I sort of heard again off of my playlist include the After Image, Unseen. That was quite a scrappy little number. I thought that was pretty cool. You also recommended some new Dance Gavin Dance, so I checked out some of their new songs. That was pretty sweet. Ease Me, Erase. Oh yeah, very much so. Their bass player died recently. That's very sad. Make Them Suffer, Erase Me came up. I sort of rediscovered a band called Currents.
Recognize the name. Very, very periphery. Veil of Maya, Monuments.
Monuments. Very Monuments. Quite sort of new age metalcore, but very good. I would maybe suggest their EP, I Let the Devil In, the 2008 EP, I Let the Devil In. Brilliant. Very, very, very good. Brilliant. And then their 2020 album, The Way It Ends, also great. Very good. I just sort of hadn't listened to them in a wee while.
Oh, I'm just having a look through my release radar as we're recording on a Friday for a change. It's updated from yesterday, so there's a bunch of new stuff on here for me to get my teeth into.
There's a song that actually came on, and it's very not me a song. This one sort of stood out, and I was like, holy crap, this is interesting. But I think there's a split or there's an album featuring, and it's Cult of Luna and Julie Christmas, and it's the song The Wreck of the SS Needle. It's 9 minutes 34 seconds long, and it's ridiculous.
I could see you being a Cult of Luna fan.
no, I should be a Cult of Luna fan because everything else I listen to says I should be a Cult of Luna fan. I just never really got into them. I was in a
I'm
band.
the same. I'm the same.
I was in a band with a guy who absolutely just ate Cult of Luna for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. What up, Porterfield? How you doing? But yeah, I just never really went too far with those guys. So yeah, just picked up some absolute belters from my liked songs, and it all started with "Cry of Love" by Crippled Black Phoenix, and apart from that, a couple of podcasts and a shit ton of Raunchy.
I went to see Top Gun 2, Top Gun Maverick last night.
Yes. How was it?
Fucking great. It is exactly what you expect. It's amazing.
There's the only thing in it that's made me sort of interested, or so the only thing that's in the. Don't get me wrong, I will absolutely 100% see that film, but the only thing in the trailer that I was like, is this going to be what's not, or how are they going to take this? Is it just looked like, in the trailer, you just see a flash of it, and it's over a runway, and it just flies up through the camera, and it looks like some sort of like test plane, or like some sort of stealth plane, or something.
It's irrelevant.
Oh,
it's irrelevant.
Okay, so it's basically
it's an intro. That's the intro, basically.
Because he's a test pilot. I take it.
He's a test pilot. That's how the film starts. But
spoilers for maybe a bit late. Might need to put this in the edit. Spoilers for Top Gun.
Spoilers for honestly, it is a massive throwback to 80s action.
Well, it
movies.
just looks like it's going to be a remake of Top Gun.
No, it's not a remake of Top Gun. It is
controversial.
It is a genuine sequel. There are stakes. There is conflict. There's action. There's Kenny Loggins. The music. I would strongly recommend anyone who's going to see it to not see. Don't watch Hot Shots. It will ruin it.
Hot Shots.
Don't ever. I mean, Hot Shots is one of the funniest parody films that's ever been made, in my opinion. It's up there with Blazing Saddles and Tropic Thunder. But there are certain scenes that are played in Top Gun Maverick that made me just laugh for no reason, because I was thinking of the scene in Hot Shots. So just be warned. But it's very, very good. It's a great throwback to 80s movies. It's well, the cinematography is great. The story is actually really good. I think, I'm maybe being it's a bit simplistic. There's a part of it I didn't quite like, but it's good all the same, and it's actually sort of a comedy in many respects. There are a lot of one-line, how would I put it, Marvel-esque one-liners.
Quips.
They was perfect. Yeah, little quips that just make
quips.
You giggle. There was one line that the whole cinema just burst out laughing, and it's not a comedy. It's not meant to be a comedy. It's got some serious moments in it, but it's great. Honestly, we're not a film podcast. Go see Top Gun Maverick. You will not regret it.
Very much so. Okay, thanks for this. Cheers. I
No
will
problem.
go see it. Maybe. I don't know. There's a lot more coming out. So, Lav, what does that bring us in for? What are you going to bring to us next week?
So we're going to stick with 2006. So a couple of weeks ago, we talked about Parkway Drive and talked about Norma Jean. And
I'm familiar with it. I was there.
I want to try and stay in that sort of zone of more back to Parkway Drive, I think, and that posy metal sort of sound, and a band that I've seen live on multiple occasions and had an absolute crush on. I want to talk about Misery Signals, and I want to talk about the album Mirrors.
You son of a bitch. You talked about Raunchy being a tribute act to In Flames, and you want to bring Misery Signals, you've brought Darkest Hour, I'm not going to tar Parkway Drive with the same brush, but like very, very similar band. Like, how did, I was going to say Haste the Day, how do Misery Signals and... God, I'm struggling with names here. Misery Signals and Darkest Hour differentiate themselves.
I don't go around calling them extraordinary.
Oh, you just listen to Let's... Sorry, I'm
you just set that one up for me, and I just fucking took that one. I took that
Oh
one.
yeah,
that was a cheap shot. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, sure. You just admit you listen to bland, boring metal, but cool. Oh. Let's listen to whatever it was you said.
Oh fuck, that's insulting. That you never remember what I'm.
I'm just trying to remember too much. Who was it? What is it? Haste the Day.
Misery Signals.
Misery Signals. Mirrors. I'm gonna write it down.
You'll still text me tomorrow to be like, what is it that we're listening to again?
Lav, after you.
Well, Keith, would you like to take us home?
Thank you very much. Thanks everyone for listening. We have been Alive or Just Blethering. If you would like to give us a shout out as to why Raunchy are absolutely extraordinary, please do so online with @AOGB Podcast, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. Drop us an email at aogbpodcast@gmail.com. I did it again. I put an at the front of that. Drop us an email, aogbpodcast@gmail.com, if you would again like to express your feelings as to why Raunchy are brilliant. And you're welcome for me introducing you to them because you've never heard them before. But hey, next week on Alive or Just Blethering, Lav will be bringing us Mirrors by Misery Signals.
Too right. And they're not extraordinary, they're just good.
Well, we'll find out, won't we?
We shall.
Good night.
Good night.